You and I, being a combination of matter and spirit, we have the choice of focusing our attention either on matter or on spirit. If you focus on matter, you get involved in the world, you get entangled in the world, you get crushed by the world, you get affected by the world, and therefore you suffer, like all of us are. While you're in the world, while you're transacting with the world, if you shift the focus of your attention to Atman, to Kshetrajna, to that which ought to be known, which is Brahman, then you are freed from this entanglement with the world, and it's not the world that causes problems, it's the entanglement with the world that causes problems. So that's all that he's saying. The first problem we have is we just don't think. We are so used to leading routine lives, particularly in a big city like Mumbai. Our lives have become so routine. You wake up at a certain time and then you commute to your place of work. There are people who say, I take the 9:12. 9:12? Train. And then in that 9:12 you have a universe of your own, your friends and the whole lot. And there is gossip and there's politics in the train. And then you get to work and it's total involvement there. There's nothing that makes us think. And it is this thinking that makes you successful. It is the thinking that makes you happy. It is the thinking that leads you to higher and higher levels of perfection, excellence. As even in management they say, keep thinking, keep asking. There's a book in which he says, we encourage our employees to ask the question why 3 times. Anything that you want to do, ask yourself why. You know, when children ask questions, you get so fed up. The adult gets so fed up. The child is full of questions. Mommy, why this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? By the time the 5th why comes, the mother is so exhausted. Either she shouts and says, shut up and keep quiet. Or she says, why don't you have an ice cream? Distracts the child. So not only do we not think, but we don't encourage others to think. We are intolerant of other people's thinking and questioning. So the first problem is we don't think. And the second thing is, even if we think, our thinking is restricted. Even the greatest of scientists in the world, the Nobel Prize winners, all those who have contributed to science and technology in the world, what is their thinking all about? Their thinking is restricted to the world, matter. How can your conclusions be right when you have taken only part of the totality? Only partial data you've taken and you're analyzing it and you get Nobel Prizes for that. Does it make sense? You haven't taken the totality. So any analysis without taking into consideration the spirit has no meaning. It's totally meaningless and has no value therefore. Our ancestors, the ancient rishis, brilliant people, understood this and therefore took the entire data into consideration. They understood that yes, there is matter, but behind this matter, beyond the matter, lies the spirit. And unless you take both into consideration, you are not going to get to the truth ever. So therefore, Arjuna's question, Arjuna at least has awakened to the fact that there is something beyond what we know. How many of us have awakened to that? The fact that we are here today in the midst of all the distractions that this city has to offer means you can congratulate yourself that yes, I have awakened to the existence, to the reality of spirit. That's the beginning. But then we must pursue it till the end. And that's where the crunch is. We don't have the power, the strength to be constant, to pursue anything with consistency. You take something, drop it. Take something else, drop it. Take a third thing, drop it. You meet a lady, all of you must be experiencing that. There's a lady in South Bombay. I can't say North Bombay because all of you are from here. It's a lady in South Bombay. Every time I meet her, she's doing something different. One day it's home science, next day it's jewelry designing, third day it's something else. Flower arrangement. Constancy is not there. Unless there is constancy, you may be brilliant, but you're not going to be able to realize your potential. So, having awakened to the fact that there is spirit, you have to have this determination and constancy to go through till the end, till you are able to clearly understand the demarcation. Where does matter end? Where does spirit begin? What is the role of matter in your life? What is the role of spirit? And that's what he's asking. Arjuna is asking this because unless you understand this basic distinction, you get to loads of confusion. Arjuna is in a confused state. He's in a delirious state. He's in total delusion. And so are we all. And this delusion manifests as inefficiency, manifests as faults, manifests as stress, manifests as wrong expectations. All kinds of things happen from this fundamental lack of discrimination. So Krishna now answers Arjuna's question, verse 2.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha idam shariram kaunteya kshetramityabhidhiyate etadyo veti tam prahuhu kshetrajna iti tadvidaha.
Krishna answers the question now. Shri Bhagavanuvacha, the blessed Lord said, O Kaunteya, son of Kunti, this body, idam shariram, is said to be kshetra, the field. The one who knows it is called kshetrajna, knower of the field, by knowers of that. First of all, he addresses Arjuna as Kaunteya, a very affectionate address. Throughout the Gita, you will find Krishna and Arjuna both addressing each other with various proper nouns indicative of the tremendous affection, confidence, and camaraderie that they share between them. And when there is affection between two people, it is much easier for the transaction of knowledge, because there is a basic confidence in the other person. So he addresses him as Kaunteya. Then he says, this body, he respects the basic tenet of knowledge, that is, you proceed from what is known to you and then move on to what is unknown. What is known to us is this body, idam shariram. This body is said to be kshetra, field. Then he says, the one who knows it, person who knows kshetra in its entirety automatically understands kshetrajna, and therefore he is called kshetrajna, knower of the field. By whom? By knowers of that. He falls back on tradition. Throughout the Gita, there are references to the rishis, the masters of the past, and these are Upanishadic masters, because historically the Bhagavad Gita came much later than the Upanishads. So Krishna himself pays homage to the masters who came before by saying knowers of that. Who calls such a person kshetrajna? All the people who have realized Atman, all the people who have understood kshetrajna in the past have said so. So when he says this, there is this tremendous backing of a whole assembly line of great masters who did research independently and arrived at the same conclusion. See, if a physics professor goes and says something to his class and he says, this is my independent research, the students will have doubts about it. But if he says, Einstein said that, Newton said that, a whole galaxy of physicists in the last 200 years have endorsed the same view, then it carries weight. So it carries weight to the extent that if the student doesn't understand it, he knows it is his inability to understand. It is his lack of intellectual stamina that has resulted in the non-understanding, not the fact that what the master is saying is wrong. Similarly, here when Krishna says, by knowers of that, he is referring to all the great masters who came before him. And what have they said? They've said that this body is the kshetra. The body is that which houses your personality. It's the location of your personality, it's the container. And this gross body includes the subtle body and causal body as well. When he says idam shariram, he's not talking only about the physical body. He's talking about the physical body, the mind and intellect, which is the subtle body, and vasanas, which are the causal body. All this is matter, kshetra, inert, insentient, non-life. Then he says, the one who knows it, one who knows matter in its entirety is a kshetrajna, knower of the field. See, it's like this. When you go to sleep and you enter a dream, right? In the dream, the dreamer knows only one aspect of the dream. A person who understands the dream in its entirety, what is it? Where did it spring from? How did it come about? The moment you understand that, what happens to you? You become the waker. Because as long as you are a dreamer, you cannot understand the dream in its entirety. A person who has understood the dream in its entirety automatically means that he has woken up, he is the waker. Similarly, a person who understands kshetra in its entirety, the gross body, subtle body and causal body and how they function, automatically becomes the kshetrajna, knower of the field. So he who knows kshetra and how it operates, understands and becomes the kshetrajna, the spirit, Atman. Now we can't distinguish between the two and therefore we get into trouble. Just as the dreamer can't distinguish. The dreamer understands only a small part of the dream and therefore he gets victimized by the dream. And it's the same thing with us. So what he's trying to say is, when you understand matter in its totality, you see what happens there. Forget spirit. Even in the world, we take positions based on inadequate data, inadequate knowledge. You know only a little bit about something and then you arrive at conclusions. Somebody has said one remark, one sentence. Based on that one sentence, the person says, you pass judgment on the whole personality and say, oh, so and so is bad or good or whatever. So this means you don't have basic objectivity. To get to the state, to understand kshetrajna, the starting point is understand that you don't know. You know only a small bit. And then to arrive at the truth, you have to expand your vision. Understand both the pros and the cons. Understand that you have to get all the data before arriving at a conclusion. So this makes you a little more objective. And it is this objectivity that ultimately gets you, because the state of realization is 100% objectivity. Whereas you and I today, we take partisan, prejudiced judgments based on inadequate data. What do we know compared to a whole lot of things that is unknown to us? So what he's trying to tell us is kshetra itself we don't know. A person who understands kshetra automatically becomes kshetrajna. And then he continues, verse 3.
क्षेत्रज्ञं चापि मां वेत्ति सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयोर्ज्ञानम् यत्तज्ज्ञानं मतं मम.
And know me also as the Kshetrajna, knower of field, in all Kshetras, fields, O Bharata, descendant of Bharata. I regard the knowledge of Kshetra and Kshetrajna as knowledge. Now, basically what he's saying in this verse is the same as what he said earlier, except that in verse 2, he's giving the distinction from the point of view of the microcosm, the individual. Here in verse 3, he is giving it from the perspective of the universe. So he says, he spreads this, because when you understand it, okay, I have matter and spirit within me, and then you say, you also have matter, you also have spirit. So the tendency is to believe that just as matter is different in me and you, the tendency is to believe that the spirit also is different. You have a separate spirit, he has a separate spirit, she has a separate spirit, and I have a separate spirit. So this separateness, which is the cause of all our problems, continues. And therefore he must necessarily extend this to the universe, and that's what he's saying here. He said, I am the Kshetrajna in all Kshetras. It doesn't matter what you see. The matter is different, but the spirit, that enlivening factor, that which gives life to the lifeless inert matter, in all of us is the same. So gradually you have to awaken yourself to that vision, to that oneness. Even in science, say physics, you have different particles, different chemicals in chemistry, but when you get down to the root, you find that all matter consists of basically atoms. And the difference between the atom of, say, a block of iron and the atom in gold and the atom in something else, when you boil down to the atom, the difference is very, very minimal, hardly any difference. So even in science, you get back to the root, you get to this, somehow you get to this state of oneness. And then you're amazed, how does this atom manifest itself, differentiate? How do these atoms differentiate themselves in such a way that by the time it gets to the end product, full manifestation, they are so different? Then you understand the differentiation is not out there. It's somehow in your own perception, in your own mind. And when you awaken to this truth, that deep down all of us are one. All of us means not just human beings. All human beings, of course, but even the virus, including the virus that causes, what is that thing called? Bird flu. The spirit in the virus that causes bird flu and the spirit in you and me is the same. It's difficult to digest. But that's the truth, and that's what he's saying. He's just making a statement, but the application of this statement has far-reaching consequences in our life. Because if you look back into all that disturbs us, all that causes sleeplessness and worry and anxiety and stress, it is this differences. It is because we see differences. You look at a person and you say, he's got good qualities and I love him. You look at somebody else and say, he's got bad qualities, I hate him, I'd never want to talk to him again. And then you look at somebody, some other manifestation, it puts you off, it doesn't match with your mindset or mental pattern, and you don't want to have anything to do with that person. But if in and through all this, you're able to understand, in and through the differences, you're able to understand that the same spirit that is in me is the same spirit, that the life spark in you, then you don't get affected, you don't get disturbed by the differences. So the first step is to understand that we are, if you choose to, you can look at the kshetra, the differences, the matter, and matter must necessarily be different. Or you have a choice of X-raying through the matter and seeing the spirit. So theoretically, now it is theory, but as you practice, it becomes a reality to you. So even in a criminal, even in a terrorist, even in a person who is negative and hateful, if you are able to see the spark of Atman, the spirit, then you revel in that interaction. You find enjoyment and fulfillment in that interaction. You don't see the dirt. This is something that, how do you understand this? Get back to where you see oneness. Where do you see oneness? Somewhere you must be seeing oneness. Where does normally a person see oneness? With your children? Yeah. You see a oneness with your children. Do you feel that your children are perfect? No. You know they have faults. You know they have shortcomings. You know they have, sometimes their qualities are so irritating to you, and yet you love them. How do you manage that? Because your focus is on my son or my daughter. Your focus is not on the qualities. And so therefore, in spite of the fact that your child, son or daughter may be having some horrible qualities, disgusting qualities, yet when you think of your, right sitting here, when you think of your son or daughter, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Love. Why? Oneness. You feel one with the child. Similarly, you see, to X-ray through Atman is going to take a lifetime. But at least this much, you start with where you see oneness and try and expand that. When you see oneness, wherever you see oneness, there is such happiness.